So I discounted it, and less than 30 seconds later, I got tapped on the shoulder again, and this time they said my name in my ear, Bonnie, Bonnie. So that was really the first time I knew that something was very concretely happening to me. My name is Bonnie Deakin, and I want to tell you about my encounters with the ghost or ghosts at the Grand Theatre in London. When I first began to work at the Grand Theatre, I had heard many stories about the plight of Ambrose Small, who had owned the Grand Theatre and many other theatres in Ontario and abroad. Well, no, I don't mean abroad, I mean in other provinces. And he disappeared one night in 1919 after having sold a number of his theaters for the tune of $1.7 million, which he deposited and then was never seen again. There are many rumors about what happened, how he may have disappeared, been disposed of, and of course, we really don't know the answer. It's been written about and made into plays. Lots of people have theories, but nobody has ever seen Ambrose Small or any trace of him. So I came to the theater skeptical, willing to accept, because I do believe in ghosts and their ability to materialize. The first time I had an encounter with Ambrose or whoever, I was alone in the theater. I like to work late, and I was just at a table in the wardrobe. And now let me explain the wardrobe to you. It in the Grand, and it may be different now because they're renovating. There is a wardrobe on one side of a hallway and a section of the wardrobe on the other. And in between is an elevator. So my office was on one side of the elevator, but I would at night work on one of the cutting tables, which are in the room, and there were 4 or 5 cutting tables. So I then heard, it was late, maybe 10 o'clock at night, I heard someone reading a newspaper, and it was a sound of the pages of a newspaper turning. And it was very clearly the sound of papers in a newspaper turning. And the hair on my arms started to rise, and I got a little edgy. So I got up and I went looking, because it sounded like it was in the room, but I thought maybe I wasn't hearing it sort of accurately. So I went looking over in my room and over in the washroom in case somebody was in there reading a paper that I didn't know. Anyway, I thought it's time to go home. So I did. And the next week when my assistant arrived, she had been telling me about her encounters with Ambrose. So I asked her what she meant by these encounters. And she said, well, he used to be in here every morning. I would arrive early. And every morning he'd be sitting here reading his newspaper. That was the first time that my skin rose. It wasn't the last. Over the years, I had many encounters with a ghost or Ambrose. I was in deep grief when my brother passed away, and I was a bit crazy. I mean, it was hard. It was hard. And I was in the dye room, which was on away from the cutting tables on my office side. And I was stirring dye in the dye vat, and someone whispered in my ear, and they said, "Bonnie, Bonnie." And I then sort of yelled across the hallway to the wardrobe and said, "What? Who's calling me?" And then I walked over, and they said, "No one was calling you." And I thought, that must have been something I heard myself, that because I'm fighting this grief, I must have, maybe the sounds of the water did it, something, but I heard it. The next day I was in my office. There's a wall to my back. There's just a doorway for me to exit the office, and I got tapped on my shoulder. I startled because there was no one there. I looked back, and then I shook it off because I thought, oh, that's just one of those nerve endings in your shoulder when you get stressed. So I discounted it, and less than 30 seconds later, I got tapped on the shoulder again, and this time they said my name in my ear, "Bonnie, Bonnie." So that was really the first time I knew that something was very concretely happening to me. Later on, maybe a week or two later, I was working with a group of students for our high school project, and we were in the basement doing sort of group fittings. And there were about 6 teenagers in the room and another assistant. And one of the teenagers was sitting at a desk, and her job was to write notes. And I was standing in the doorway guiding the fittings, and I got whispered in my ear again, "Bonnie, Bonnie." And I said nothing. I just waited, and the young girl at the desk writing the notes said, "What was that?" So I said, "You heard something? What did you hear?" And she said, "It said, Bonnie, Bonnie." So that was the most affirming moment that I ever had, with that I wasn't just crazy, and that I really was hearing something, and it was directing its being towards me. During the course of that time, many other things were happening around me and to me. Things began levitating, and I don't really believe in that, but they did. And things without batteries would begin to operate, and something caught fire when there was no fire to catch. And Ambrose, or whoever this ghost is or was always seemed to be on my side. I can't say how I knew that, but I felt that I was just needing confirmation of the life hereafter. The final thing that happened was when I was sitting in a dress rehearsal of Blithe Spirit, and I was sitting in the upper balcony, and just as the seance was about to begin, I looked over, and in the empty box was the shape of a man. It was white. It was a mist, it was like a mist, but it was the shape of a man in a top hat, sitting in the chair, the stage right. And I same thing. I thought, no, that must be a trick of the way the lights are aiming. But the next night, it was there again, and so I told someone. We never saw that figure again. It wasn't there on opening night, even though the seat was empty. So it couldn't have been the lights on that particular area of the side stage. So I do believe in ghosts now, and I wonder what's happening to the ghosts in their new digs when it comes to the renovations at the Grand. I hope they still arrive and show up and give us stories. I know that Ambrose and his stories are well documented. You can look it up, and many people have documented it. They've had psychics in, and they say that the site of the Grand was on a spot where there had been a massacre at some point. So believe it or not, this is my encounter with the ghosts at the Grand Theatre in London.